start? Yes. Okay. Subtitles are there? Oh. But then the subtitles won't be there if there's no network? Oh, okay. All right. So I start now? Hare Krishna. Welcome to our Sunday Krishna book reading to Srila Prabhupada. And as always, before we begin, we'll offer our respectful obeisances to Srila Prabhupada and to each other. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti-Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvasesha Sunyavadi Paskachade Shatarane. And to each other, Vanchakalpatubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jagadish, can you turn the mic up a little? So, it's very hot here in Vrindavan, so it's hard for our dear devotees to come out and come to Prabhupada's house, but the few of us that are here will continue on with the service to Srila Prabhupada. So open up your Krishna book to chapter 10, the deliverance of Nalakuvara and Manigriva. This story of the cursing of Nalakuvara and Manigriva and their deliverance by Krishna under the all-blissful desire of the great sage Narada is here described. The two great demigods, Nalakuvara and Manigriva, were the sons of the treasurer of the demigods, Kuvera, who was a great devotee of Lord Shiva. By the grace of Lord Shiva, Kuvera's material opulences had no limit. As a rich man's son often becomes addicted to wine and women, so these two sons of Kuvera were also addicted to wine and sex. Once these two demigods, desiring to enjoy, entered the garden of Lord Shiva in the province of Kailash, on the bank of the Mandakini Ganges. There they drank much and engaged in hearing the sweet singing of the beautiful women who accompanied them in that garden of fragrant flowers. In an intoxicated condition, the two demigods entered the water of the Ganges, which was filled with lotus flowers, and there they began to enjoy the company of the young girls, exactly as a male elephant enjoys female elephants within the water.
While they were thus enjoying themselves in the water, all of a sudden Narada, the great sages, happened to pass that way. He could understand that the demigods Nalakuvara and Manigriva were too much intoxicated and would not even see that he was passing. The young girls, however, not so much intoxicated as the demigod, and they at once became ashamed at being naked before the great sages Narada. They began to cover themselves with all their haste. The two demigod sons of Kuvera were so much intoxicated they could not appreciate the presence of the sages Narada and therefore did not cover their bodies. On seeing the two demigods so degraded by intoxication, Narada desired their welfare and therefore he exhibited his causeless mercy upon them by cursing them.
Because the great sage was compassionate upon them, he wanted to finish their false enjoyment of intoxication and association with young girls, and wanted them to see Lord Krishna face to face. He conceived of cursing them as follows. He said that the attraction for material enjoyment is due to an increase of the mode of passion. A person in the material world, when favored by the material opulence of riches, generally becomes addicted to three things: intoxication, sex, and gambling. Materially opulent men, being puffed up with the accumulation of wealth, also become so merciless that they indulge in killing animals by opening slaughterhouses, and they think that they themselves will never die. Such foolish persons, forgetting the laws of nature, become overly infatuated with the body. They forget that the material body, even though very much advanced in civilization, up to the position of the demigods, will finally turn into ashes or stool. And while one is living, whatever the external condition of the body may be within, there is only stool, urine, and various kinds of worms. Thus, being engaged in jealousy and violence to other bodies, materialists cannot understand the ultimate goal of life. And without knowing this goal of life, they generally glide down to a hellish condition in their next life. Such foolish persons commit all kinds of sinful activities on account of the temporary body, and they are even unable to consider whether the body actually belongs to them. Generally, it is said that the body belongs to the persons who feed it. One might therefore consider whether the body belongs to one personally or to the master to whom one renders service. The master of slaves claims full right to the bodies of the slaves because the master feeds the slaves. It may also be questioned whether the body belongs to the father, who is the seed-giving master of the body, or to the mother, who develops the child's body in her womb.
Foolish persons are engaged in committing all sorts of sins due to the misconception of identifying the material body with the self. But one should be intelligent enough to understand to whom the body belongs. A foolish person indulges in killing animals to maintain the body, but he does not consider whether the body belongs to him or to his father or mother or maternal grandfather. Sometimes a father gives his daughter in charity to a person with the view of getting back the daughter's child as a son. The body may also belong to a stronger man who forces it to work for him. Sometimes a slave's body is sold to a master, and from that day on the body belongs to the master. And at the end of life, the body belongs to the fire, because the body is given to the fire and burned to ashes. Or the body is thrown into the street to be eaten by the dogs and vultures.
Before committing all kinds of sins to maintain the body, one should understand to whom the body belongs. Ultimately, it is concluded that the body is the product of the material nature, and at the end, it migrates into the material nature. Therefore, the conclusion should be that body belongs to the material nature. One should not wrongly think that the body belongs to him. To maintain a false process, why should one include in killing? Why should one kill innocent animal to maintain the body? When a man is influenced with the false prestige of opulences, he does not care for any moral instruction, but includes in wine, woman, and animal killing. In such circumstances, a poverty-stricken man is often better situated because a poor man thinks of himself as a relation to the other bodies. A poor man often does not wish to inflict inquiries upon the other bodies because he can understand more readily that when he himself is injured, he feels pain. Therefore, the great sages Narada considered that because the demigod Nalkuvera and Mugira were so infected by false prestige, they should be put into the condition of life devoid of the all opulences.
A person who has a pinprick in his body does not wish others to be pricked by pins. A considerate man in the life of poverty does not wish others to be also put into that condition. Generally, it is seen that one who has risen from a poverty-stricken life and becomes wealthy creates some charitable institution at the end of his life, so that other poverty-stricken men might be benefited. In short, a compassionate poor man may consider others' pains and pleasures with empathy. A poor man is seldom puffed up with false pride, and he may be freed from all kinds of infatuation. He may remain satisfied by whatever he gets for his maintenance by the grace of the Lord. To remain in the poverty-stricken condition is a kind of austerity. According to Vedic culture, therefore, the Brahmanas, as a matter of routine, keep themselves in a poverty-stricken condition to save themselves from the false prestige of material opulence. False prestige due to advancement of material prosperity is a great impediment for spiritual emancipation. A poverty-stricken man cannot become unnaturally fat by eating more and more. And on account of not being able to eat more than he requires, his senses are not very turbulent. When the senses are not very turbulent, he cannot become violent.
Interesting. Another advantage of poverty is that a saintly person can easily enter a poor man's house, and thus the poor man can take advantage of the saintly person's association. A very opulent man does not allow anyone to enter his house. Therefore, the saintly person cannot enter. According to the Vedic system, a saintly person takes the position of a mendicant, so that on the plea of begging something from the householder, he can enter into the house. He can enter any house. The householder, who has usually forgotten everything about spiritual advancement because he is busy maintaining family affairs, can be benefited by the association of a saintly person. There is a great chance for the poor man to become liberated through association with a saint. Of what use are persons who are puffed up with material opulence and prestige if they are bereft of the association of saintly persons and devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead?
The great sages Narada therefore thought that it was his duty to put those demigods into condition where they could not be falsely proud of their material opulences and prestige. Narada was compassionate and wanted to save them from their fallen life. They were in the mode of darkness, and being therefore unable to control their senses, they were agitated to sex life. It was the duty of a saintly person like Narada to save them from their abnormal condition. In animal life, the animal has no sense to understand that he is naked. But Kuvera was the treasurer of the demigod and a very responsible man, and Nalkuvera and Malingrava were two of his sons, and yet they became so animated and irresponsible that they could not understand, due to intoxication, that they were naked. To cover the lower part of the body is the principle of a human civilization, and when men or women forget this principle, they become no better than animal. Narada therefore thought that the best punishment for them was to make them immovable living entity or trees. Trees are by nature's law immovable. Although trees are covered by the motes of ignorance, they cannot do harm. The great sages Narada thought it fitting that although the brothers would be punished to become trees, by his mercy they would continue to keep their memory and be able to know why they were being punished. After changing the body, a living entity generally forget his previous life, but is in special case by the grace of Lord, as with Nalkuvira and Manigruva, one can remember.
Sage Narada therefore contemplated that the two demigods should remain for 100 years in the time of the demigods in the form of trees, and after that they would be fortunate enough to see the Supreme Person of Godhead face to face by his causeless mercy, and thus they would be again promoted to the life of the demigods and become great devotees of the Lord. After this, the great sage Narada returned to his abode, known as Narayana Ashram, and the two demigods turned into trees, known as twin Arjuna trees. The two demigods were favored by the causeless mercy of Narada and given a chance to grow in Nanda's courtyard and see Lord Krishna face to face.
Although child Krishna was bound up to the wooden mortar, he began to proceed toward the twin trees in order to fulfill the prophecy of his great devotee, Narada. Lord Krishna knew that Narada was his great devotee, and that the trees standing before him as twin Arjuna trees were actually the sons of Kuvera. I must now fulfill the words of my great devotee, Narada. He thought. Then he proceeded through the passage between the two trees. Although he was able to pass through the passage, the large wooden mortar stuck horizontally between the trees. Taking advantage of this with great strength, Lord Krishna began to pull the rope which was tied to the mortar. As soon as he pulled, the two trees, with all their branches and limbs, fell down with a great sound. Out of the broken, fallen trees came two great personalities, shining like blazing fire. All sides became illuminated and beautiful by their presence. The two purified personalities immediately came before child Krishna and bowed down to offer their respects and prayers in the following words.
Dear Lord Krishna, you are the original personality of Godhead, master of all mystic power. Learned Brahmana know very well that this cosmos manifestation is an expansion of your potency, which are sometimes manifested and sometimes unmanifested. You are the original provider of the life, body, and the sense of all living entity. You are eternal God, Lord Vishnu, who is all-pervading, the imperishable controller of everything, and you are eternal time. You are the original source of the cosmos manifestation, which is acting under the spell of the three modes of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. You are living as the super soul in all multi-forms of the living entities, and you are very well what is going on within their bodies and minds. Therefore, you are the supreme director of all activities of the living entities. But although you are in the midst of everything which is under the spell of the material modes of nature, you are not affected by such contaminated qualities. No one under the duration of the material modes can understand your transcendental qualities, which exist before the creation Therefore, you are called the Supreme Transcendentalists. Let us offer our respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of you, Lord Vasudeva, the Supreme Brahman, who are always glorified by your personal internal potency.
In this material world, you make yourself known only by your different incarnations. Although you assume different types of bodies, these bodies are not part of the material creation. They are always full of the transcendental potencies of unlimited opulence, strength, beauty, fame, wisdom, and renunciation. In the material existence, there's a difference between the body and the owner of the body. But because you appear in your original spiritual body, there's no such difference for you. When you appear, your uncommon activities indicate that you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such uncommon activities are not possible for anyone in material existence. You, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, cause the birth and death as well as the liberation of the living entities. And you are full with all your plenary expansions. You can bestow on everyone all kinds of benedictions. O Lord, O source of all auspiciousness and goodness, we offer our respectful obeisances unto you. You are the all-pervading Supreme Personality of Godhead, the supreme source of peace, and the Supreme Personality in the dynasty of King Yadu. O Lord, our Father, known as Kuvera, the demigod, is your servant. Similarly, the great sage Narada is also your servitor, and only by their grace have we been able to see you personally. We therefore pray that we may always be engaged in your transcendental loving service by speaking only about your glories and hearing about your transcendental activities. May our hands and other limbs be engaged in your service, and our minds always be concentrated at your lotus feet, and our heads always bow down before the all-pervading universal form of your lordship.
When the demigods Nala, Kuvera, Manigriva finished their prayers, the child Lord Krishna, the master and proprietor of Gokul, bound to the wooden grinding mortar by the ropes of Yashoda, smiled and said, "It was already known to me that my great devotee Narada Muni had shown his causeless mercy by saving you from the abominable condition of pride due to possessing extraordinary beauty and opulence in a family of demigods. He has saved you from gliding down into the lowest condition of hellish life. All these facts are already known to me. You are very fortunate because not only were you cursed by him, but you had the great opportunity to see him. If someone is able by chance to see face to face a great saintly personality like Narada, who is always serene and merciful to everyone, then immediately that conditioned soul becomes liberated. This is exactly like being situated in the full light of the sun. There cannot be any visionary impediment. Therefore, O Nala, Kuvara, and Manigriva, your lives have now become successful because you have developed ecstatic love for me. This is your last birth within material existence. Now you can go back to your Father's residence in the heavenly planets, and by remaining in the attitude of devotional service, you will be liberated in this very life." After this, the demigods circumambulated the Lord many times and bowed down before him again and again, and thus they left. The Lord remained bound up with ropes to the grinding mortar. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 10th chapter of Krishna, the deliverance of Nala, Kuvara, and Manigriva. Haribo.
Haribo. Chapter 11. Killing of demon Vatasur and Bakasur. When the twin Arjuna tree fell to the ground, making a sound like the falling a thunderbolt, all the inhabitants of Golok, including Nanda Maharaj, and immediately came to the spot. They were very much astonished to see how the two great trees had suddenly fallen, because they could not find no reason for their falling down. They were puzzled. When they saw child Krishna bound up to the wooden motor by the rope of the mother Yashoda, they thought that it must have been caused by some demon. Yes, otherwise, how was it possible? At that time, they were very much perturbed because such uncommon incidents were always happening to the child Krishna. While the coward men were thus contemplating the small children who were playing with and they informed the men that the tree had fallen because Krishna had pulled the wooden motor with the ropes binding him. Krishna came in between the two trees, they explained, and the wooden motor was twisted and stuck in between the trees. Krishna pulled the rope and the trees fell down. When the trees fell down, the two very dazzling men came out of the tree and they said something to the Krishna.
Most of the coward men didn't believe the statement of the children. They could not believe that such things were at all possible. Some of the men, however, believed them and told Nanda Maharaj, "Your child is different from all other children. He just might have done it." Nanda Maharaj smiled to hear about the extraordinary abilities of his son. He came forward and untied the knot just to free his wonderful child. After being freed by Nanda Maharaj, Krishna was taken unto the laps of the elder gopis. They took him away to the courtyard of the house and began to clap, praising his wonderful activities. Krishna danced along with their clapping, just like an ordinary child. The Supreme Lord Krishna, being completely controlled by the gopis, sang and danced just like a puppet in their hands. Sometimes Mother Yashoda used to ask Krishna to bring her a wooden plank for sitting. Although the wooden plank was too heavy to be carried by a child, still somehow or other Krishna would bring it to his mother. Sometimes his father, while worshipping Narayan, would ask him to bring his wooden slippers, and Krishna, with great difficulty, would put the slippers on his head and bring them to his father. When he was asked to lift some heavy article and was unable to lift it, he would simply move his arms. In this way, daily, at every moment, he was the reservoir of all pleasure for his parents. The Lord was exhibiting such childish dealings with his inhabitants of Vrindavan because he wanted to show the great philosophers and sages searching after the absolute truth how the supreme absolute truth, personality of Godhead, is controlled by and subject to the desires of his pure devotees.
One day, a fruit vendor came before the house of Nanda Maharaj. Upon hearing the vendor call, "If anyone wants fruits, please come and take them from me," Child Krishna immediately took some grains in his palms and went to get fruits in exchange. In those days, exchange was by barter. Therefore, Krishna might have seen his parents acquire fruits and other things by bartering grain, and so he imitated. But his palms were very small, and he was not very careful to hold the grains tight, so he was dropping them. The vendor who came to sell fruits saw this and was very much captivated by the beauty of the Lord. So she immediately accepted whatever few grains were left in his palms and filled his hands with fruits. In the meantime, the vendor saw that her whole basket of fruit had become filled with jewels. The Lord is the bestower of all benedictions. If someone gives something to the Lord, he's not the loser. He is the gainer by 1,000,000 times. One day, Lord Krishna, the liberator of the twin Arjuna trees, was playing with Balaram and the other children on the bank of the Yamuna. And because it was already late in the morning, Rohini, the mother of Balaram, went to call them back home. But Balaram and Krishna were so engrossed in playing with their friends that they did not wish to go back. They just engaged themselves in playing more and more. When Rohini was unable to take them back home, she went home and sent Mother Yashoda to call them again. Mother Yashoda was so affectionate toward her son that as soon as she came out to call him back home, her breast filled up with milk. She loudly cried, "My dear child, please come back home. Your time for lunch is already past." She then said, "My dear Krishna, oh dear lotus-eyed child, please come and suck my breast. You have played enough. You must be very hungry, my dear little child. You must be tired from playing for so long." She also addressed Balaram thus, "My dear Rama, the glory of your family, my dear child, please come back with your younger brother Krishna immediately. You have been engaged in playing since early morning, and you must be very tired. Please come back and take your lunch at home. Your father, Nandaraj, is waiting for you. He has to eat, so you must come back so that he can eat."
As soon as Krishna and Balaram heard that Nanda Maharaj was waiting for them and could not take his food in their absence, they started to return. Their playmates complained, "Krishna is leaving us just at the point when our playing is at the summit. Next time we shall not allow him to leave." His playmates then threatened not to allow him to play with them again. Krishna became afraid, and instead of going back home, he went back again to play with the boys. At that time, Mother Yashoda scolded the children and told Krishna, "My dear Krishna, do you think that you are a street boy? You have no home? Please come back to your home. I see that your body has become very dirty from playing since early morning. Now come home and take your bath. Besides, today is your birthday ceremony. Therefore, you should come back home and give cows in charity to the brahmanas. Don't you see how your playmates are decorated with ornaments by their mothers? You should also be cleansed and decorated with nice dress and ornaments. Please, therefore, come back, take your bath, dress yourself nicely, and then again you may go on playing."
In this way, Mother Yashoda called back Lord Krishna and Balaram, who are worshipful by the great demigods like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. She was thinking of them as her child. When Mother Yashoda, the children Krishna and Balaram came home, she bathed them and very nicely and dressed them with ornaments. She then called for the Brahmanas, and through her children she gave many cows in charity for the occasion of Krishna's birthday. In this way she performed the birth ceremony of Krishna at home. After this incident, all the elderly cowherd men assembled together and Nanda Maharaj presided. They began to consult among themselves how to stop the great disturbance in the Mahavan on the account of the demons. In this meeting, Upan, the brother of Nanda Maharaj, was present. He was considered to be a learned and experienced, and he was a well-wisher of Krishna and Balaram. He was a leader, and he addressed the meeting as follows: "My dear friends, now we should leave here for another place, because we are continually finding that great demons are coming here to disturb the peaceful situation, and they are specially attempting to kill the small children. Just consider Putana and Krishna. It was simply by the grace of Lord Hari that Krishna was saved from the hands of such great demon. Next, the whirlwind demon took Krishna away into the sky, but by the grace of Lord Hari, he was saved, and the demon fell down on a stone slab and died. Very recently, this child was playing between the two trees, and the trees fell down voluntarily, and yet there was no injury to the child. So Lord Hari saved him again. Just imagine the clemency is that this child or any other child playing with him were cursed by the falling tree. Considering all this incident, we must conclude that this place is no longer safe. Let us leave. We have all been saved from the different calamities by the grace of Lord Hari. Now we should be cautious and leave this place and reside somewhere where we can live peacefully. I think that we should all go to the forest known as Vrindavan, where just now there are newly grown plants and herbs. It is very suitable for pasturing ground for our cows, and we and our families, the gopis with their children, can very peacefully live there. New Vrindavan, near Vrindavan in Golden Hill, which is very beautiful, and there are newly grown grass and fodder for the animal. So there will be no difficulty in living there. I therefore suggest that we should start immediately for the beautiful place, as there is no need to waste any more time. Let us prepare all our carts immediately, and if you like, let us go. Keep all the cows in front.
On hearing the statement of Upendra, all the cowherd men immediately agreed. Let us immediately go there. Everyone then loaded all their households, furnitures, and utensils onto the carts and prepared to go to Vrindavan. All the children, women, and old women of the village were arranged on seats, and the cowherd men equipped themselves with bows and arrows to follow the carts. All the cows and bulls were placed in the front along with their cows, and the men with their bows and arrows surrounded the herds and the carts and began to blow on their horns and bugles. In this way, with tumultuous sound, they started for Vrindavan. And who can describe the damsels of Raja? They were all seated on the carts and were very beautifully dressed with the ornaments and costly saris. They chanted the pastimes of the child Krishna as usual. Mother Yashoda and Mother Rohini were seated on a separate cart, and Krishna and Balaram were seated on their laps. While Mother Rohini and Yashoda were riding on the cart, they talked to Krishna and Balaram, and feeling the pleasure of such talks, they looked very, very beautiful.
In this way, after reaching Vrindavan, where everyone lives eternally, very peacefully and happily, they encircled Vrindavan and drew all the carts together in a half circle, and in this way constructed a temporary residence. When Krishna and Balaram saw the beautiful appearance of Vrindavan, Govardhan Hill, and the banks of the river Yamuni, they felt very happy. As they grew up, they began talking with their parents and others in childish language, and thus they gave great pleasure to all the inhabitants of Vrindavan. Soon, Krishna and Balaram had grown sufficiently to be given charge of the calves. Cowherd boys from the very beginning of their childhood are trained to take care of the cows, and their first responsibility is to take care of the little calves. So along with the other little cowherd boys, Krishna and Balaram went into the pasturing ground and took charge of the calves, and there they played with their playmates. While taking charge of the calves, sometimes the two brothers played on their flutes, and sometimes they played with amalaka fruits and bale fruits, just as small children play with balls. Sometimes they danced and made tinkling sounds with their ankle bells. Sometimes they made themselves into bulls and cows by covering themselves with blankets. Thus, Krishna and Balaram played. The two brothers also used to imitate the sounds of bulls and cows and play at bullfighting. Sometimes they used to imitate the sounds of various animals and birds. In this way, they enjoyed their childhood pastimes apparently like ordinary, mundane children.
Once, when Krishna and Balaram were playing on the bank of the Jamuna, a demon of the name Vatsasura assumed the shape of a calf and came there intending to kill the brothers. By taking the shape of a calf, the demon could mingle with the other calves. Krishna, however, specifically noticed this, and he immediately alerted Balaram about the entrance of the demon. Both brothers then silently approached him. Krishna caught hold of the demon calf by the two hind legs and tail, whipped him around very forcibly, and threw him up into a tree. The demon lost his life and fell down from the top of the tree to the ground. When the demon lay dead on the ground, all the playmates of Krishna congratulated him, "Well done, well done." And the demigods in the sky showered flowers with great satisfaction. In this way, the maintainers of the complete creation, Krishna and Balaram, used to take care of the calves every day, beginning in the morning, and thus they enjoyed their childhood pastimes as cowherd boys in Vrindavan.
One day, all the cowherd boys went to the bank of the river Yamuna and to water their calves. When the calves drank water from the Yamuna, the boys also drank. After drinking, when they were sitting on the bank of the river, they saw a huge animal which looked something like a hero and was as big as hill. Its top was as strong as thunderbolt. When they saw that unusual animal, they became afraid of it. The name of this beast was Bakasur, and he was a friend of Kamsa. He appeared on the scene suddenly and immediately attacked Krishna with his pointed, sharp beak and quickly swallowed him up. When Krishna was thus swallowed, all the boys headed by Balaram became almost breathless, as if they had died. But when the Bakasur demon was swallowing up Krishna, he felt a burning fiery sensation in his throat. This was due to glowing effulgence of Krishna. The demon quickly threw Krishna up and tried to kill him by pinching him in his beak. Bakasur did not know that although Krishna was playing the part of a child of Nand Maharaj, he was still the original father of the Lord Brahma, the creator of the universe. Mother Yashoda's child, who is the receiver of all pleasure for the demigod, who is the maintainer of saintly person, caught hold of the great genetic heroine by the two halves of his beak, and before his coward boyfriend before his mouth, just as a child very easily split a blade of grass from the sky. The dozens of the heavenly planet showered flowers like the malika, the most fragrant of all flowers, as a token of their congratulations. According the showers of the flower was vibration of bugles, drums and conch shell.
When the boys saw the showering of flowers and heard the celestial sounds, they were struck with wonder. And when they saw Krishna freed from the mouth of the great demon, Bakasura, all of them, including Balaram, were so pleased that it seemed as if they had regained their very source of life. As soon as they saw Krishna coming toward them, they, one after another, embraced the son of Nanda and held him to their chest. After this, they assembled all the calves under their charge and began to return home. When they arrived home, they spoke of the wonderful activities of the son of Nanda. When the gopis and cowherd men all heard the story from the boys, they felt great happiness because naturally they loved Krishna. And by hearing about his glories and victorious activities, they became still more affectionate toward him. Thinking that child Krishna had been saved from the mouth of death, they looked upon his face with great love and affection. They were full of anxiety and could not turn their faces from the vision of Krishna. The gopis and the men began to converse amongst themselves about how wonderful it was that child Krishna had been attacked in so many ways and so many times by so many demons, and yet the demons themselves had been killed and Krishna had remained uninjured. They continued to converse amongst themselves about how so many great demons in such fierce bodies had attacked Krishna to kill him, but by the grace of Hari had not been able to cause even a slight injury. Rather, they had died like small flies in a fire. Thus they remembered the words of Garga Muni, who had foretold by dint of his vast knowledge of the Vedas and astrology that this boy would be attacked by many demons. Now they were actually seeing that this was coming true, word for word.
All the cowherd men, including Nanda Maharaj, used to talk of the wonderful activities of Lord Krishna and Balaram, and they were always so much absorbed in those talks that they forgot the threefold miseries of this material existence. This is the effect of Krishna consciousness. What was enjoyed 5,000 years ago by Nanda Maharaj can still be enjoyed by Krishna conscious persons simply by talking about the transcendental pastimes of Krishna and his associates. Thus, Balaram and Krishna enjoyed their childhood pastimes, imitating Lord Ramachandra's monkeys, who constructed the bridge over the ocean, and Hanuman, who jumped over the water to Ceylon. They used to imitate such pastimes among their friends, and so happily passed their childhood life. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 11th chapter of Krishna, killing the demons Vatsasura and Bakasura. Hari Bol.
Chapter 12. The killing of demon Agasura demon. Once the Lord desired to go early in the morning with all his coward boy friends to the forest, where there were to assemble together and take lunch. As soon as he got up from the bed, he blew his buffalo horn bugle and called all his friends together, keeping the calves before them. They started for the forest in a great procession. In this way, Lord Krishna assembled thousands of his boyfriends. They were each equipped with a stick, flute, and horn, as well as a lunch bag, and each of them was taking care of thousands of cows. All the boys appeared very jolly and happy in that excursion. Each and every one of them, including Krishna, was attentive to his personal cows as he herds them in different places in the forest. The boys were fully decorated with various kinds of golden ornaments, yet out of sporting potency They began to pick up flowers, leaves, twigs, peacock feathers, and red clay from the different places in the forest, and further decorated themselves in different ways. While passing through the forest, one boy stole another boy's lunch package and passed it to the third. And when the boys whose lunch pack was stolen came to know of it, he tried to take it back. But the boy who had threw it to another boy, this sporting play went on amongst the boys as a childhood pastime.
When Lord Krishna went ahead to a distant place in order to see some specific scenery, the boys behind him ran to try to catch up and be the first to touch him. So there was a great competition. One would say, "I will go there and touch Krishna." And another would say, "Oh, you cannot go. I'll touch Krishna first." Some of them played on their flutes or vibrated bugles made of buffalo horn. Some of them gladly followed the peacocks and imitated the onomatopoeic, poetic sounds of the cuckoo. While the birds were flying in the sky, the boys ran after the birds' shadows along the ground and tried to follow their exact courses. Some of them went to the monkeys and silently sat down by them, and some of them imitated the dancing of the peacocks. Some of them caught monkeys by the tail and played with them. And when the monkeys jumped into a tree, the boys followed. When a monkey showed its face and teeth, a boy imitated and showed his teeth to the monkey. Some of the boys played with the frogs on the bank of the Yamuna, and when out of fear the frogs jumped into the water, the boys immediately dove in after them, and they would come out of the water when they saw their own shadows and stood imitating, making caricatures and laughing. They would also go to an empty well and make loud sounds, and when the echo came back, they would call it ill names and laugh.
As stated personally by the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the Bhagavad-Gita, he is realized proportionately by transcendentalists as Brahman, Paramatma, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Here, in confirmation of the same statement, Lord Krishna, who awards the impersonalist the pleasure of Brahman realization by his bodily effulgence, also gives pleasure to the devotees as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Those who are under the spell of the external energy, Maya, take him only as a beautiful child. Yet he gave full transcendental pleasure to the cowherd boys who played with him. Only after accumulating heaps of pious activities were those boys promoted to personally associate with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Who can estimate the transcendental fortune of the residents of Vrindavan? They were personally seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face, he whom many yogis cannot find even after undergoing severe austerities, although he is sitting within their hearts. This is confirmed in the Brahma Samhita. One may search for Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, through the pages of the Vedas and Upanishads, but it is difficult to find him there. However, one who is fortunate enough to associate with a devotee can see the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face. After accumulating pious activities in many, many previous lives, the cowherd boys were seeing Krishna face to face and playing with him as friends. They could not understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but they were playing as intimate friends with intense love for him.
When Lord Krishna was enjoying his childhood pastime with his boyfriend, one Agasur demon became very impatient. He was unable to tolerate seeing Krishna playing so happily and therefore he appeared before the boys intending to kill them all. This Aghasur was so dangerous that even the denizens of heaven were afraid of him. Although the denizens of heaven drank the nectar daily to prolong their lives, they were afraid of this Aghasur and were wondering when will the demon be killed. The denizens used to drink nectar to become immortal, but actually they were not confident of their immortality. On the other hand, the boys who were playing with Krishna had no fear of the demon. They were free of fear. Any material arrangement for protecting oneself from the death is always unsure. But if one is in Krishna consciousness, then immortality is confident assured. The demon Aghasura appeared before Krishna and his friend. Aghasura happened to be the younger brother of Putna and Bakasur, and he thought Krishna had killed my brother and sister. Now I shall kill him, along with all his friends and cows. Aghasura was incensed by the Kamsa, so he had come with the determination. Aghasura also thought that when he would offer grains and water in memory of his brother and sister and kill Krishna and all the coward boys, then automatically all the inhabitants of Vrindavan would die. Generally, for the householder, the children are the life and the breath force. When all the children die, then naturally the parents also die on account of strong affection for them.
Them.
Aghasura, thus deciding to kill all the inhabitants of Vrindavan, expanded himself by the yogic city called Mahima. These demons are generally expert in achieving almost all kinds of mystic powers. In the yoga system, by the perfection called Mahima city, one can expand himself as he desires. The demon Aghasura expanded himself up to 8 miles and assumed the shape of a very fat serpent. Having attained this wonderful body, he stretched his mouth open just like a mountain cave. Desiring to swallow all the boys at once, including Krishna and Balaram, he sat on the path. The demon, in the shape of a big fat serpent, expanded his lips from land to sky. His lower lip was touching the ground, and his upper lip was touching the clouds. His jaws appeared like a big mountain cave without limitation, and his teeth appeared just like mountain summits. His tongue appeared to be a broad traffic way, and he was breathing just like a hurricane. His eyes were blazing like fire. At first, the boys thought that the demon was a statue, but after examining it, they saw that it was a big serpent lying down on the road and widening his mouth. The boys began to talk among themselves. "Dear friends, this figure appears to be a great animal, and he is sitting in such a posture just to swallow us all. Just see, is it not a big snake that has widened his mouth to eat all of us?"
One of them said, "Yes, what you say is true. This animal's upper lip appears to be just like the sunshine, and its lower lip is just like the reflection of red sunshine on the ground. Dear friends, just look to the right and left-hand side of the mouth of the animal. Its mouth appears to be like a big mountain cave, and its height cannot be estimated. The chin is also raised just like a mountain summit. That long highway appears to be its tongue, and inside the mouth it is as dark as in a mountain cave. The hot wind that is blowing like a hurricane is his breathing, and the fishy bad smell coming out from his mouth is the smell of his intestines." Then they further consulted among themselves. "If we at all If we all at one time entered into the mouth of this great serpent, how could it possibly swallow all of us? And even if it were to swallow all of us at once, it could not swallow Krishna. Krishna will immediately kill him, as he did Bakasura. Talking in this way, all the boys looked at the beautiful lotus-like face of Krishna, and they began to clap and smile. And so they marched forward and entered the mouth of the gigantic serpent.
Meanwhile, who is the super soul within everyone's heart could understand the big statue figure was a demon. The boys did not know this, however, and thus while Krishna was planning how to stop the distinction of this his intimate friends, all the boys along with their calves entered the mouth of the serpent. But Krishna did not enter. The demon was awaiting Krishna's entrance, and he was thinking, everyone has entered except Krishna, who has killed my brother and sister. Krishna is the assurance of the safety to everyone. But when he saw that his friends were already out of his hand and were lying within the belly of a great serpent, he became momently aggrieved. He was also struck with wonder at how the external energy worked so wonderful. He then began to consider how he would kill the demon, at the same time save the boys and the cows. Although there was no factual concern on Krishna's part, he was thinking like that. Finally, after some deliberation, he also entered the mouth of the demon. When Krishna entered, all the demigods who had gathered to see the fun and who were hiding within the clouds expressed their feeling with the words, Alas, alas. At the same time, all the friends of Agasur, especially Kamsa, who were all accustomed to eating flesh and blood, expressed their jubilation, understanding that Krishna had also entered the mouth of the demon.
While the demon was trying to smash Krishna and his companions, Krishna heard the demigods crying, Alas, alas! And he immediately began to expand himself within the throat of the demon. Although he had a gigantic body, the demon choked by the expanding of Krishna. His big eyes moved violently and he quickly suffocated. His life air could not come out from any source, and immediately it burst out of a hole in the upper part of his skull. Thus his life air passed off. After the demon was dead, Krishna, with his transcendental glance alone, brought all the boys and calves back to consciousness and came with them out of the mouth of the demon. While Krishna was within the mouth of Agasura, the demon's spirit soul came out like a dazzling light, illuminating all directions, and waited in the sky. As soon as Krishna came out of the mouth of the demon with his calves and friends, that glittering, effulgent light immediately merged into the body of Krishna within the vision of all the demigods.
The demigods became overwhelmed with joy and showered flowers on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, and thus they worshipped him. The denizens of heaven danced in jubilation, and the denizens in Gandharva Loka offered various kinds of prayers. Drummers beat drums in jubilation, the Brahmanas recited Vedic hymns, and all the devotees of the Lord chanted the words Jai, Jai, all the glories to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When Lord Brahma heard those auspicious vibrations which sounded throughout the higher planetary system, he immediately came down to see what had happened. He saw that the demon was killed, and he was struck with wonder at the uncommon, glorious pastimes of the personality of Godhead. The gignatic mouth of the demon remained in an open position for many days and gradually dried up. It remained a spot of pleasure pastimes for all the cowherd boys. The killing of Aghasura took place when Krishna and all his boyfriends were under 5 years old. Children under 5 years old are called Komara. From 5 years up to the 10th year they are called Poganda. And from the 10th year up to the 15th year they are called Keshora. After the 15th year, boys are called youths. For 1 year there was no discussion of the incident of the Aghasura demon in the village of Raja. But when the boys attained their 6th year, they informed their parents of the incident with a great wonder.
For Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is far greater than such demigods as Lord Brahma, it is not at all difficult to award one the opportunity of merging with his eternal body. This he awarded to Aghasura. Aghasura was certainly the most sinful living entity, and it is not possible for the sinful to merge into the existence of the Absolute Truth. But in this particular case, because Krishna entered into Aghasura's body, the demon became fully cleansed of all such sinful reactions. Persons constantly thinking of the eternal form of the Lord in the shape of the deity or in the shape of a mental form are awarded the transcendental benediction of entering into the kingdom of God and associating with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we can just imagine the elevated position of someone like Aghasura, into whose body the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, personally entered. Great sages, meditators, and devotees constantly keep the form of the Lord within their hearts, or they see the deity form of the Lord in the temples. In that way, they become liberated from all material contamination, and at the end of the body enter into the kingdom of God. This perfection is possible simply by keeping the form of the Lord within the mind. But in the case of Aghasura, the Supreme Personality of Godhead personally entered. Aghasura's position was therefore greater than the ordinary devotees or the greatest yogis.
Maharaj Parishad, who was engaged in hearing the transcendental pastime of Lord Krishna, who saved the life of Maharaj Parishad while he was in the womb of his mother, became more and more interested to hear about him. And thus he questioned the sages Sukdev Goswami, who was reciting Srimad Bhagavatam before the king. King Parishad was a bit astonished to understand that the killing of Aghasura demon was not discussed for 1 year until after the boys attained the Phalguna age. Maharaj Parishad was very inquisitive to learn about them, for he was sure that such an incident was due to the working of Krishna's different energy. Generally, the Kshatriyas or the administrative class are always busy with their political affairs, and there they very little chance to hear about the transcendental pastime of Lord Krishna. But while Parishad Maharaj was hearing this transcendental pastime, he considered himself to be the very fortunate, because not only was he hearing Krishna's pastime, but he was doing so from Sukdev Goswami, the greatest authority of Srimad Bhagavatam, Thus, being requested by Maharaj Parishad, Sukdev Goswami continued to speak about the transcendental pastime of Lord Krishna in the matter of his form, qualities, fame, and paraphernalia. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of 12th chapter of Krishna, the killing of Aghasur demon.
So that concludes our hour of reading Krishna book to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada, for letting us come and read your Krishna book. And so come and join us next week at 4:30 to 5:30. Let us offer our respectful obeisances to Srila Prabhupada and to each other. Namo Vishnuvadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvasesha Sunyavadi Paskachade Shatarane, and to each other. Vanchakalpatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Srila Prabhupada, Jai Krishna Book. Haribol.